Dion Blanks, thank you for joining us tonight. I respect so much what you're doing in this space of financial literacy. Thank you for tuning in, continuing doing the wonderful work that you're doing. Listen, let me do this. Let me bring on my co-host for tonight and every night, Miss is Michelle Mitchell.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Michelle, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And you were just talking in the green room about your lovely plant in the back. I mean,
Yes.
it's absolutely, and I got to give me a plant. They say I got to have something green and growing, right?
That's
So,
right.
yes.
Sign of what?
What's that?
It's a sign of what? Green?
Oh, money. You know that. You know
Right.
that. And growth. I mean,
And
you got
grow?
something green that grows. I can play with that. I can rock with that. So what's going on in Kalamazoo, Michigan now today?
Today, I kind of been a little busy. So
Been a
I
little
don't
busy.
know. I wanted to get out for a walk today, and I got so immersed in what I was doing, I didn't make it. So,
I know I actually got out and about today, just running a couple of errands with Lisa for Lisa. And so it's been a great day. Constance Scott, thank you for watching from Concord, Michigan. And Constance Scott, Michelle, if you don't know, we have a couple regular ladies that are on every week,
uh-huh.
being Miss Bonita,
Yes.
Dr. Bonita,
Dr. Bonita.
and Ruth Bell. And
Yes.
Constance, if I am correct, is Ruth Bell's sister, I do
Oh,
believe.
nice. Nice to
Yeah, so a
meet you.
little family affair. Our folks over at the Park Church.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, it's winding down. We got 7 days before the date, right? The tax date. Everything
Yeah.
has to be done. So we want to remind people to make sure that you file. If you don't file, you make sure that you get your extension ready.
That's
Remember,
right.
putting an extension to file does not give you an extension to pay, right?
That's
So, listen, they said that's right. Their family, that's right. Love it. So we want to remind people of that. Um, there are other couple things that I'll probably be talking about when I record my show and probably on some money minutes, Michelle, is number one, cryptocurrency or Bitcoin has reached 30,000 again.
Oh,
So
really?
hasn't been there in 10 months. So I know there's a lot of people who are happy about that.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing is Cash App. Cash
Yes.
App, Venmo, very, very popular ways to send money, right?
Yes.
Y'all can't send me no money. I don't have Cash App, right?
Right.
And Michelle, this is what happens when I go out and I'm like having a book signing and people want to
Uh-huh.
Cash App. You know who's with me a lot of
Y
times? It's TJ.
yes. Yes.
And TJ just has them Cash App him. I'm like, what do you think Cash App? He said, well, we got the same name, right?
Right, but it's a different bank account linked to that
Uh,
cash.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but it's all good, my son. So, which a big shout out to him. Congratulations, he has accepted a position and has gotten his assignment with Procter and Gamble. And
Yay.
so, yeah, I won't take the liberty to announcing that unless he texts me and tells me it's okay. All right,
I'm so
but
proud of him.
the
I'm so
other thing, the
proud of
reason I brought up Cash App is this might have slipped by a lot of people, but there's something that was brought up in one of the meetings I was with George Frazier last week. Someone talked about Fed Now. And so, of course, they asked me what my opinion on Fed Now was. So, of
Mhm.
course, I had to go do my research, right?
Of
And
course.
Fed Now, and Fed Now is the Federal Reserve's. They're going to have an app where you can transfer money between businesses and individuals and those types of things. So Fed Now, they actually made the press release on March 15th, and it's going to be available. They're going to start testing it now, and it's going to be in full swing come July of this year. And so now they're getting into that space of transferring money, and you know, some of it, of course, the IRS has been putting some clamps down on people. You know, if you receive so much money and all those type of things, and that's the first thing that kind of came to my mind.
Yeah.
But some people were thinking about it in terms of what we just talked about, in terms of, is this a recognition by the Federal Reserve that this digital movement of money is here to stay?
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
If but you can put your head in the sand if you want, but
You
it's
can.
here, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought that's very interesting. And you know, I don't know what the limits are on Cash App. Um, I've said for years the reason why Cash App kicked me out is because I was sending too much money to my kids. Right? That's my theory, right?
That's
I
your
don't know.
theory.
That's my theory, right? I don't know if that's true or not, but they kicked me out, won't let me back in. But with the Fed Now service, you can send up to $500,000.
Whoa. They serious.
Serious, serious. And so it'll be interesting to see how that all kind of plays out. But so I just wonder what this means to like a Cash App or Venmo, and
Mm.
what that type of announcement will do to their stock prices and all that kind of stuff. So,
Well, I'm just thinking from a consumer perspective, right?
mhm.
If something has the name Fed in front of it, some consumers gonna be running the other way.
Oh, right away, right,
Right away.
right
Like
away,
it's not even an option.
right.
That's my thoughts. But
They ain't gonna be tracking my money. I
right.
ain't. Da, da, da,
Yes,
da, da,
exactly.
all that.
Even though
Yeah,
it's already being tracked, they just don't know that. But
right.
anything with that Fed in front of it,
Yeah, they probably gonna run the other way,
yeah,
right? Because we
that's
don't
what.
trust.
So
We
I
don't.
think Cash App is okay.
Yeah. So we don't trust the feds, whether we Democrat
Yep,
or Republican. We don't
exactly.
trust the feds. Yeah.
Of course.
So, um, yeah, it's very, very interesting. But it
Mhm.
is very interesting getting into this space, and so yeah.
The tech space itself, to me, is like I think we're on a cusp of some things. Because in the accounting industry, the fintech, the financial tech companies,
Hmm.
they are wholeheartedly embracing Chat GPT, and they are integrating the concept of Chat GPT within their platforms.
So tell me that part, the GPT. I'm not. What does that stand for?
Uh, Chat Chat GPT is an open AI, and you
Okay.
can ask Chat GPT questions, and it'll give you an answer. So it has read the internet, and everything that's ever been posted on the internet is read. And I just read recently one. I know it passed the bar exam, and then it just passed
You talking
another
about the AI chat past
the
the bar exam?
AI. Yes. Yes.
Really?
So if you are not part of the technology movement, you will get left behind.
For sure.
You
For
will get
sure.
left behind. And it's moving at lightning speed. Lightning. And I'm in the accounting industry. You wouldn't think that they're
Well,
techie,
when you think
but we are
about
very techie.
CPAs, accountants,
Yeah.
you're talking really about the one of the most conservative
Yes.
professions there is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Alice Martin. Hello, Kimberly. Thank you guys for
Hello.
joining. I love when people put their name in the chat because
Yeah.
we can at least acknowledge them, right?
Yeah.
And so many people watch that don't do that. We appreciate y'all too.
Yeah.
But yeah, fintech is really something. And then you
It
think
is.
about there's a lot of money moving in fintech for
A
sure.
lot of money moving in fintech. Yes.
Very, very interesting. Very,
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. Well, Michelle, listen, we have another phenomenal guest, right? And so between Ivan and between, just networking stuff, we just keep coming with these people that come and they are just outstanding at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't honestly, I don't know if there's anyone that benefits from this show more than you and I.
Right. I know, right?
I mean, like, I gotta keep doing the show because I keep
Yeah.
learning more and more
Yes.
by having phenomenal guests. And Ted Santos is with us tonight, and he's no different. Ted is an executive coach, entrepreneur. He's in New York City, and I love the title that we have because he said that he's in the business of creating miracles, right? Creating miracles, and you know when you think about that, just creating a miracle is pretty awesome stuff.
Mhm.
So he works with CEOs, major companies, all that type of stuff, to penetrate untapped markets. And you know what I'm really looking forward to, and I'm not going to keep talking because thank you, Brad, for being here as well. Um, is he talks about being disruptive.
Mm.
And I think that goes very good with what you just said
Yeah.
about in tech and how it's disrupting business as we have known it.
Yes.
Um, and so Ted is an author. He's going to talk a little bit about that. He's going to share his experience in corporate America. And we're going to even get a little bit of talking about some lost productivity
Mm.
and what has caused lost productivity in a lot of businesses. So, without any further ado, let's bring Ted Santos on the stage. Oh, I forgot.
You supposed to do it.
I'm supposed to do it.
That's hilarious.
I'm like, it didn't come on stage. I forgot that Dante was at. You got to do it. Ted, how you doing, my brother?
It's one of those. You go first. No, you go first.
No, you go first. No, you go first. Man, let me tell you something. Thank you for being here. Thank you for just being with us in our audience tonight, man. I'm excited about some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. And man, so before we kind of get into that, share with our audience who you are and a little bit about what you do, and then let's start unpacking.
Okay. All right. So first, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. You guys are super at interviewing people, and I love the way the dynamics, the way you play off one another, and I definitely love that plant in the background. So
Thank you.
green thumb, and you're talking about money, like Michelle said. What else is green, right? Um, so you've kind of said it, but I'll say it succinctly. If someone asks me what I do, I'm in the business of producing miracles. And CEOs hire me when they are looking to create a breakthrough, except they're not sure how to do it with existing resources. So I work with them to create disruptive strategies. And that strategy, the output could be disruptive technology or it could be penetrating some untapped market. And then I work with them to transform corporate culture to ensure the culture of the organization is able to profitably execute this breakthrough initiative. And most people may not know, most breakthrough initiatives in corporate America die. They fail. They don't make it.
Mm.
So so we'll get into a little bit about mindset and why so many breakthrough initiatives fail. A lot of people don't know, back in 1983, Steve Jobs presented something called the Newton, and the Newton turned out to be much like something we have today, the iPad, but it failed in 1983. So we'll talk about Steve Jobs is a great case study for disruption and breakthrough initiatives, and the fact that it failed the first time. What makes that happen? So, so in addition, there's some background. I've run organizations, mid-sized companies. I've run them as a chief operating officer, and I've run companies that were growing so fast they were already starting to fall apart. And I've run companies that were failing, 3 years of declining revenues, and they were in an industry that was growing like this. So you have to put in hard work to have declining revenues every year in an industry where everyone else is growing. So that was a turnaround situation. So my background's operations, leadership, sales. So And I have a lot of training specifically in transforming corporate culture, and I'll stop there.
Well, is intriguing to me right there. The transformation of corporate culture, because in this era that we are in, I call it post-COVID.
Right.
What has corporate culture become as a result of that? Because I mean, we're convinced, right? We're never going to go back to the way it was.
Right.
It's going to be some type of hybrid of it. So how did that really disrupt the traditional corporate culture?
Well, the obvious is, in the beginning, people dreaded going home to work when COVID started. It's
Mhm.
like, oh God, I don't want to go home. Then when they sent them home and said, come back, and they were like, oh no, I don't want to come back. I want to work. But now what's happening is, so the corporations said, okay, so let's meet you halfway. You need to come into the office a few days, and then you can stay home a few days. Well, now people are saying they're exhausted from that, because they
Mhm.
go into work and then they stay home, and which one is better? And they feel like now home is starting to feel like the office, and they're not getting away. So people are actually talking about the exhaustion from the hybrid model, and they're starting to want to go back. A lot of leaders will have a desire for people to come back to the office, because there are a lot of spontaneous conversations that happen when you're in the office, and you just
Mhm.
don't get that if everyone's working from home. And you'll get innovative opportunities that are created because people just kind of dance with one another in the office, and it's harder to get that. And then even the Zoom calls, some people, even though there's lots of fun, people are in Zoom calls with the jacket on and underwear underneath, no shoes, and so, or
All
they
that.
don't have to do their hair, and yeah, so there have been some benefits, but uh, I think you hear people are social, so people like interacting with their colleagues, provided they have good work relationships.
Well, that I think even for me, just there's only so much of that, just being at home. You want to get out and get around
Right.
among people, and you pick up that energy and that type of thing. Um, and I think we're seeing how important it is, even with children, in terms of school and social skills, that maybe we didn't develop in some of the kids, because they spent 2 years, their first 2 years of schooling was on Zoom, and that can be a challenge in itself as well.
They've been tracking that. The children who went back to school earlier time.
Uh-oh.
I think it froze up us a little bit. We missed that. You said the children who went back to
So
school earlier.
did I freeze?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's freezing.
Are we in the? I think I froze here. Someone
There
froze.
we go. We got you back now.
Okay. All right. So when they looked at math and reading scores, the children who went back to school early, like almost immediately, they have excelled. They are performing at a uh, they are a much higher level. They've accelerated better than the children who stayed home. Like this is a hands down. It's not even debatable. So if you extrapolate that, how will that affect people in the workforce who stayed home? In terms of performance, and yes, we're going to get into a whole nother conversation about workplace performance. But you were asking about disruption. Uh, did COVID disrupt workplace performance?
Mhm.
If
Yeah,
it disrupted
absolutely.
school performance, why would we think it wouldn't disrupt workplace for adults?
So talk about that. I mean, obviously, I think it did have some impact on workplace performance. But let's kind of unpack some of that different factors, I guess, and then this might could lead to one of the things that you're passionate about in terms of work place performance and productivity, right? So, COVID obviously, but let's go ahead and talk about divorce. I know that's one of the things that you have written a book on and the impact that that has on workplace performance. So go ahead and share a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
I'm assuming you said COVID and work because you stopped. I didn't hear anything for a bit.
No, I was just saying, I was just asking you if you wanted to share a little bit about your study and your book in terms of divorce
Oh,
and
oh,
workplace
oh.
performance and productivity.
Okay. So most people don't know that corporate America, they're losing. And so, Tony, did you tell Michelle the answer to this question?
I did not.
Oh, perfect. Good, good. This would be perfect. So, Michelle and the listeners, hey, what's going on, the scout? I see you in the house. Great. Thanks for joining. Um, corporate America is losing 300, that's the number, $300 billion every year in workplace productivity. Do you have any idea why?
Hmm. They just don't want to perform, like complacency,
Yeah,
not knowing how their job is important to the business. Could
I can
maybe.
see that. And some people have said, "Oh, it's the internet, Facebook, and they're playing around on YouTube." And
Hmm.
uh, I've heard all those things, but I can sum it up in one word: divorce.
Mm.
So when someone's going through a divorce, another study found that their workplace performance drops by 50 to 75%. So imagine, especially in a large company, a percentage of your employee population, they're headed for a divorce. So the couple, they're already starting. There's another percentage in the middle of it, and then there's another percentage that just came out of it. That's a lot of people distracted and a reduction in workplace performance. And then there are court dates, and so people are just really out of it. I know one person who literally took off 1 year after his divorce because he knew he wouldn't be productive. Not everyone can afford to do that. So you're paying someone who really needs to go off for a year and recalibrate themselves and think about life. But since they can't, they go to work. You're paying them to kind of sit there and um, not be so happy about what's happening. Um, and we live like this is just business as usual, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting as we're talking about that because, and I don't know what the statistics are on divorce rate, but I know that it's pretty high.
53%.
Um, and I think that Michelle and I we don't we it's hard for us to relate to that because she's been married to her husband Tony for 30 years. I've been married to my wife Elisa for 30 years. But even when you're going through other challenges in your relationships, or even I was thinking about when there's loss, I mean,
Hmm.
of family members and those
Right,
type of things. I
right.
think it seems like it would all be kind of interrelated.
Yeah. Additions of new children. Like, so we're all in a state of change in our family dynamics. So, I never thought about it, the impact on the workplace,
Well,
but
that's
it
that's
is.
that's 300 billion to the corporate America.
Hmm.
Another 30 billion that the taxpayer is hit because uh, divorce ends up. Some of the children end up in crime, so we're paying for incarcerated individuals,
Mm.
social programs, and there are all kinds of other things that will cost us $30 billion. So no one is getting out of this for free. It's affecting everyone, and we just pretend like it's okay and there's nothing we can do about it. So if you ask me, there is something we can do about it. So when I speak of disruption, it just going to kind of take a step back. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are the CEO of a company, a president, and you are not intentionally creating problems for you, just period. If you're not intentionally creating problems in your organization, you should be fired or retrained.
So Ted, unpack that, because to me that is such a bold statement. I love it. But if you're not causing problems, you need to be fired or retrained. Unpack that for us.
Right. So your job as a CEO is to intentionally disrupt the organization, create problems, chaos, breakdowns, whatever politically correct word you want to use, it's a problem that you are intentionally creating. And I mentioned Steve Jobs earlier. I think he's great because if you think about it, some guy says, we all know what the Walkman was, and people loved it. And then some guy comes along and says, well, we're going to create this device and put 1,000 songs on it. And you can't imagine how disruptive that would be to your employees. They're like, well, we make these great, beautiful computers and everyone loves them and all the ad agencies use them. And why are we making these little things for music? This makes no sense. This is not our business. That's Sony. Let them do it. Well, that's what we're going to do. And so that would be disruptive because now you're taking your computer and miniaturizing it in a way. So you're going to have to develop new skills, new competencies. You may need new vendors. You may have to alter your relationship with your vendors. You've disrupted everything. Instead of selling a computer for $2,000, now you've got a $125 product. And that means you can now sell it to 13-year-olds who can put together their allowance and pay $125. You just penetrated an untapped market because the average 13-year-old couldn't afford your $2,000 computer. And so you never stopped making your computers. You just now acquired new customers who will upgrade to your computers and laptops and so forth. So now that one device will help you sell more computers. So by creating this one problem, and when the organization solve the problem, they come up with a breakthrough. And then Steve Jobs said, okay, now that we've got 1,000 songs on there, we're going to make it a cell phone. Let's turn it into a phone. And you can imagine they're like, why are we making cell phones? But when they solve the problem of having a viable, desirable product, it's another breakthrough for the organization. Not only does the marketplace love it, the investors on Wall Street love it. And it's all because one guy is just creating problems for the organization to solve.
And you know what I'm hearing here is a sales funnel. I mean, I'm seeing this sales funnel from the iPod to the iPhone. I got an iPhone, I got an iPad, I got a MacBook. I mean, it's just
you got it all.
I'm hook, line, and sinker, right? So, but you know, I think that's so amazing because the concept of being a disruptor, and that coming from the top down, you know, and you know, I've had talked to, you know, like Michael Roberts, and he has this thing about, he thinks what we should do with some of these at some churches and stuff in our neighborhoods is just put a lab there and just bring these kids in and just let them break code and do all these things to kind of disrupt the gaming or the internet. And that's where you'll have the best creativity coming out of that, is through I'm just laughing at the chat. It's like, I guess I let's see. I put that up.
Yeah.
It worked. There we go. So he said, I'm one of the best customers.
You are, because when you have a customer, just sell the customer more stuff, because when it costs more to acquire a new customer.
Right.
Just sell the customer you got more stuff.
So you sell deeper into that relationship.
Yeah, it deepens the relationship.
And you, Apple did a great job of turning their customers into fans. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what fans do? They go out and go get more fans for you. Oh,
Yes.
you have to come check them out.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah,
So so we're gonna
that's
take
pretty
this and make it
amazing.
full circle. So um, if your CEO is now trained to intentionally create problems, this is you just think of the mindset. You're not walking around with a white glove and saying the desk is dirty. That's not creating a problem. That's you know that's unproductive. When you're creating problems that are big enough, and just think about John F. Kennedy saying we're going to send a man to the moon before the end of the decade. How many people rallied around that problem that John F. Kennedy created? You know, I've met people who literally changed their major because they wanted to help send the man to the moon. So now you need to be able to navigate people through problems that that's why in 1983 when Steve Jobs and he was perhaps not as savvy as navigating the entire organization through that. So when Jobs actually came back, instead of him trying to get the whole company to create an iPod, he took 100 people from different parts of the organization, and then he was able to more. He was more nimble with 100 people as opposed to 30,000 or whatever the number was, and he was a lot more successful to get like a team of Navy SEALs, so to speak, in the organization. Highly trained people, people who had the mindset, who could navigate and deal with the disruption that he created, as opposed to saying it doesn't make sense. So he handpicked a few of the right people. When you train your entire organization in this, what I call disruptive leadership model, now your organization is like Steve Jobs' 100 highly skilled people who can deal with this. So, and it is, if you think of a Navy SEAL training, Navy SEALs are trained to be able to deal with anything. Their training is so rough. And when I train people, I don't take them out and drown them in the ocean or anything. I don't do that. I don't have them carrying telephone poles and all those things that you see. But it's a transformation of the mindset, the way you see yourself, the way you see problems, the world, your customers, all of those things. Yes. Um, when your people are well trained that way, it's easier for the CEO to now create a new problem. And if you look at a company like Apple, the employees embrace the next problem. They now are okay with that. Uh, but see, something else happens. If you think about it, if you train people to be truly effective in solving problems, they become better communicators. They become more effective at resolving conflict. Um, they're clear about their intentions. They become highly committed, right? They become better listeners because they're listening for things that they haven't dealt with. So, and their mind is more able to see possibilities beyond what's in front of them. Now imagine if you can take all of that and bring it home to your significant other, and you're better at resolving conflict. You're a better
Mm.
listener. You're highly committed. Now you can see how developing those skills in a corporation, taking them home, can positively impact marriages and relationships as a general rule, and people will have better marriages. Uh, so a better home life, and they'll have a better home life and bring that home, and have a better work life and
It
bring
just
that home.
feeds on itself.
It feeds on itself. And so what, we hear about corporate social responsibility more in the context of um, global warming, the climate change. But if you could now have corporations look at corporate, social responsibility in the sense of impacting the divorce rate, being able to move the needle, they can now mitigate that $300 billion they're losing because of workplace performance, because the divorce rate drops significantly.
Wow. And as you were talking about it, of course, we're in this financial realm, and I was thinking about as you're talking about, corporations and talk about global warming and that type of thing. I think another area And this also leads to the discussion about divorce, because they said, "What I don't know what the percentage is. 50% of divorce have something to do with finances." You know,
Yes.
if we can bring financial literacy into the workplace, and then they can take that, not only become more productive on the job, but also they take those skills home, right?
Absolutely.
And so now, because I think one of the hard things, because what happens normally with a company that's doing their benefits at benefit time, you have these benefit people come in, they give a 15-minute meeting, and then you make a decision. And typically what happens is that you go home and tell your spouse well, this is the benefit that I signed up for. There's
Right.
really not that communication that happens to say, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And even that little thing right there, I think we could do better in terms of corporations and that type of thing.
Well, it's so that financial literacy is important because if you think about it, when the average person wins a large lottery, their life is worse. They're worse off, and it's really
Mhm.
because of financial literacy. So throwing money at people does not solve the problem, and especially if you come from generations of people who have not been good at managing money, what's going to be different about you? So yes, if you could give people that kind of education, and it really is a mindset because if you're making $50,000 a year with a you know two-parent household and two children and in the Midwest, not in New York, but if you were in the Midwest, you could live off of that. And then you win a $10 million lottery, you're in trouble because you're going to burn through that money like you've never seen money
two
before.
years two
Yeah.
years the
Yep.
average is two
You'll be in
years
debt. You'll be in debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the same thing that we often talk about, and I've mentioned many times, even on our show here, is that even as we promote people getting life insurance, creating generational wealth, there has to be an exchange of generational knowledge as well.
Right.
Otherwise, it'll be just like the lottery winner, right?
Right.
Is that we win it and we don't know how to properly manage it,
Right.
how to properly invest, do some of the things like that. And next thing you know, we got this money and we got some depreciating things, but no assets.
Correct.
Right?
Right. 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 And that is the knowledge is extremely important, but there also has to be a mindset because if you have a scarcity mindset and
Mhm.
you're spending money like it's never going, like you only live once and I'm just going to enjoy myself, and that's what money is for spending all of those things, how people justify bad behavior with money, and when they're worse off and that they're now in debt, it's too late. They're like, oh, I wish I knew this. I wish I knew back then what I knew now. But
That's always, yeah, yeah. And I think about Michelle. I know one of the things you like is the different money scripts. Where people they avoid money.
Yeah.
Some people hoard the money.
Yeah.
Some people, they think the money is the answer to all things, right? And so
Yeah.
we have these different relationships with money that sometimes causes us to, make decisions that are just not good and they're not balanced. We don't have that balance in our life. And I think it's important to have balance. And speaking of the word balance, how do you feel? How does this new era of workplace balance affect productivity and the whole divorce scenario?
that's a complicated conversation.
I know I loaded you up on that one.
No, I'll tell you why. So if you look at a top performing attorneys in a large law firms, you will see people who will willingly put in those 80 hours, uh, and they're getting a huge bonus, and they love what they do. So there are people like that who just love what they do. They're like the professional athlete that just trains so they can break records and do things that have never been done. You can't condemn those people for that. I mean, those are your Henry Fords and your John D. Rockefellers and they're the people who have changed the world. I mean, imagine Tom Edison, 10,000 times, over 10,000 times, I tried to make the light bulb work. I mean, who in their right mind keeps going after 100 times, or then, okay, I'll do it 1,000 times, but over 10,000?
And who counts them?
Right.
Like, when did you decide to start counting this? Right? I got it.
So, and even Albert Einstein, his wife said that there were times where if she didn't cook food for him, he just wouldn't have eaten. She knew, like, he was on something, and he'd go in his room and close the door, and he's just working. He's writing thoughts. He's using his mind. So there are people who are so highly committed that attempting to tell them that they have to have this balance is almost like making them wrong for having that kind of fire in them. And there are people like that with that kind of fire. That is, they get fulfillment from life in that way. And maybe biologically they're what people would say wired. They have the biology to like go after it and do it. Think of Usain Bolt. What kind of training? If you read about some of his training, at somewhere in his workout in the middle, he was vomiting because he trained that hard. How many people want to run that hard that they're vomiting? The same with Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was, Mr. Olympia. He talked about times he trained so hard. So there are people who train like that, who really they're highly committed. They want part of their fulfillment in life is that kind of performance, and they're married and they have children and they love their spouse. They love their children, and they love what they do. So it becomes a matter of prioritizing. And sometimes it's I just have to get to this point and I'm going to accomplish. I mean, some people like Nikola Tesla decided to not have relationships or marry so that he could focus 100% on what he did. So do you call him imbalanced for that?
No, I mean, and I think it's different for everyone too, in terms of what that looks like. So Ted, here's the thing. We work, Michelle works with a lot of small business owners. I work with a lot of individuals. And I'm really kind of stuck on this disruption thing, right?
Okay.
So for the small business owner, the entrepreneur, how can they create that same environment of disruption to advance their business? What if they're a solopreneur or something like? How do you do that? How do they do that?
So when I do a strategy session with a CEO or his executive team, I ask a few questions, and one is, who do you want to be known as in the world, in the market? Like, who do you? So that could be a personal for you personally as an entrepreneur, but your organization, who do you want to be known as? And I'm going to use Starbucks because it's a brand everyone knows. Howard Schultz is the founder of Starbucks. And when you say when they started out, who did he want Starbucks to be known as? It was the third place. Do either of you know what he was looking for when he said, we want to be known as the third place? Why? What was the third place?
Oh, the coffee shop, because there was Seattle Coffee.
Okay.
The third coffee shop. Is that what he meant?
Why? I'm just first checking with you.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking that too, Michelle, when you said the coffee shop, but I'm thinking they wanted to be the third most recognized franchise in the world behind McDonald's and maybe somebody else.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
So let's do it this way. Of all the places you want to physically be in the world on a day-to-day basis, what's the number one place you enjoy being?
Home.
Yep, your home.
Home.
Right. So
Homework, coffee shop. Yeah.
number two, there you go, Michelle. You got it. Home is number one.
Work.
Work is number two. And where's the third place you need to be? Starbucks.
Hang out.
So
Yeah, listen, Starbucks can become work now, you know.
No,
But yeah, great.
But think about it. People have business meetings in Starbucks,
Yeah.
right? So if you're not at home, if you're not at work, then you should be at Starbucks. And we created an environment that supported this being, we accept you go home and you love home. You go to work and you love work, or you have to be, or whatever the reason, you spend a lot of time there. And after that, where's the next place you want to be?
You get to choose to be in that place.
Exactly. And so they created an environment that would draw you in to want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I like that's good.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So who do you want to be known as? That's a question.
Okay.
I ask people, who are your customers and why do they buy from you? So that's important to understand. So for Starbucks to become the third place, they would have to know who their customers are and why they would want to come into their coffee shop. And as Michelle said, why would they choose? Like, I'm choosing Starbucks instead of going home, instead of being at work, I'm choosing Starbucks. And if you understand why your customers buy from you, then who are your non-customers and why aren't they buying from you? See, because every company, I would say, has an untapped market and they're not sure how to get there. Now, what supports all that, if you're a CEO, some CEOs of Fortune 500s, I've heard them say the number one job of a CEO is to create an environment that allows people to be high performers, right? And if you can create an environment where people feel like they choose to be there, like, I want to be at work. Not only do I want to be at work, my family, my friends, this is such a great place to work. I want them to come
to
here.
work there too.
Yeah. So if the CEO's job is to create an environment that is conducive for, great workplace relationships, great high performance, I would say first your job is to create a problem, right? There's some problem that you want the organization to solve. Now you have to provide them with resources and an environment that's conducive for them solving the problem. That means, you know what? If you gave them a problem that they've never solved, there's no blueprint, they're going to be mistakes, they're going to be failures. And if you have an environment that says no one makes mistakes here, you're rewarded for never making a mistake, it's difficult to create intentional problems.
Well, I think that's so good because, we often talk about what is business. Business is identifying a problem and finding a solution for that problem. If we can find a problem in the marketplace, a need in the marketplace, and we fulfill that need, then our business is successful. Well, I think this whole thought takes it to another level. It's like, I'm not looking for a problem in the marketplace. I'm creating one.
Yeah.
So can you imagine someone hires me and they're like, oh, this guy's going to come in and give us solutions to solve problems. And they don't know I'm coming in to create problems for them.
All right. And I'm going to create a problem and I'm going to create the solution. And
well, you're going to create the solution.
Yeah.
See, they will always be better at creating the solution than I will. Even if I see the solution, it's better for me to not give it to them. It's better for me to take them through the training for them to see it, because they still may see something I don't. And part of, if you notice, most breakthrough or most disruptive technology comes from a company outside of your industry most of the time. So the cell phone, the iPod, like the iPod, why didn't Sony do that? The MP3 player was there. Sony, that was Sony's playground, and they didn't do it. Someone outside their industry. When it came to the smartphone, why didn't Nokia or
Motorola.
Motorola.
That's the one I was saying. Motorola. Why didn't they do that? So
Why didn't GM, Chrysler, or Ford come up with the electric car?
Well,
Right.
they did. They trashed
Or
them back. They literally beat those cars with sledgehammers back in the 70s or 80s. They did. They destroyed them. It was a joke to them.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
but that is a good point. Why didn't they get to where we are with the battery and everything that Tesla has done?
Yeah.
Um,
And you know, now they're coming into that, but I think sometimes success breeds complacency.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing that I'm really hearing from you, Ted, is if a CEO is not creating problems, as you stated, that he's allowing complacency, or he or she, right? She,
Brilliant.
CEO, is
Brilliant.
allowing complacency to set up in their organization. And
Exactly.
that's the worst thing for growth, is complacency.
Yes.
So people have asked me, what are the signs that a company is headed for trouble? And I said success.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what? If they're successful, yeah, it's going to do exactly what you said. It's going to breed complacency. We already know what we're doing. We're good at what we're doing. And they're never going to see that company coming around the corner who will disrupt them. And now they'll have to play catch up, if they can catch up.
Yeah, because they don't look for opportunities for disruption because they're complacent.
Right.
They're in their comfort zone.
They're
Yeah.
the line leader, right?
Yeah.
They're the line leader. They're not looking to, yeah, absolutely.
And if you think about, I guess one way you could say they're looking for opportunity, but if you look at Howard Schultz and Starbucks, and I got you, the scout, yeah, thank you. It is eye opening to know what was really behind Starbucks. They literally invented that from nothing. So if you think about the Newton that Steve Jobs brought out in 1983, that there was no precedent. There was nothing to support. There was nothing in the trajectory of computers that said that was going to be the evolution of computers. He invented that. So disruption actually fosters innovation. Being able to intentionally create problems allows you to create possibilities that didn't exist. And so when you're asking about entrepreneurs, that's another thing. If you are a leader, leaders are in the business of creating possibility, of inventing them. That is your job. So as a leader, you are creating, you're first in the business of possibilities. And out of those possibilities, you're going to create problems. And it's your job to now creating an environment that fosters, and you're responsible for corporate culture. Um, I used to do CEO roundtables where I invited uh, former CEOs of Fortune 500s, and I'm talking former CEOs of Chase Bank, Dun and Bradstreet, Xerox, Harris Hotel and Casinos, New York Stock Exchange. I've had those guys, State Street Bank, and then I brought in current CEOs of middle market companies, 100 million to 2 billion. And one of the CEOs, and this guy happened to be a current CEO at the time of this breakfast, he said he was great at turning companies around. He was great at growing them. And he was brought into a company and he said, these people need to be fixed. Man, I'm going to fire a bunch of people over there and these people need to be transformed, and bring in those people to transform them. And he couldn't understand why it was lagging. And, that's why people were like, oh, turning around a company is like turning around a battleship. It takes forever. He said that he learned a lesson that when he then transformed himself, the rest of the organization with him.
Yeah.
So he was
There
trying
you
to
go.
fix them. And when he saw that it wasn't fixing, if we want transformation, it has to start at the top.
Yeah.
That was like, he said he only had to learn that lesson once.
Man, what a great way to end the show right there. I
Yeah.
mean, that right there is worth the cost of admission right there. Just
Thank you.
that transformation of yourself
Right.
before you can talk about transforming anyone else or organization, that type
Exactly.
of thing. So Ted, if someone wanted to follow you or kind of keep up with you, how would they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Ted Santos. I am on Facebook, YouTube. Um, uh, if you like to drop me a line and hear more, have a conversation about transformation or intentionally creating problems, my email address is T like Ted Santos, SANTOS at turnaroundip.com. And IP is like intellectual property. I'd love to have a conversation. As you see, I love these conversations.
Well, man, it's been very enlightening. I again, man, I appreciate you taking the time out and dropping some knowledge on us. Man, I'm gonna keep close to you, man, because I love that thought of disruption and the mindset. Just being in a mindset where you're not complacent, that transformation of oneself. So, again, thank you for hanging. Go ahead.
I say one thing. So I wrote a book. The book is called "Here's Why You Can't Find Love." You can find it in Amazon. You can even order it out of Barnes and Noble. I wrote the book, and everything we're talking about, disruption and transforming mindset, I took that and put it into a book about intimate relationships. So the book was my way to contribute to corporate America and helping to drop the divorce rate. So the book is 5 women interviewing me, and it's kind of like a workshop. And I talk about how people sabotage and what you were saying about the money mindset. That there is so much of that happens in relationships, and it sabotages. And then I talk about how to create great relationships. So if anyone would like to get a taste of my work, you could actually see the book in the background here. It's an enjoyable read.
Here's why you can't find love. Okay.
And I am going to put
chat.
that.
The link.
Yep, you'll find it on Amazon. You can find it. Well, here's why you can't find love is the correct title. Here's why you can't find love.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm actually going to see if I can put it up and get the direct link. All right, there it is.
Thank you, Scout. Thank you.
Get it?
I got it. I'm trying to copy link.
I got it. There it is.
You put it in a private chat?
Yeah, so he can copy it and put it in there.
Always love to hear feedback from people when they read the book.
We got it. And let's see. Put it in the comments here. Right there.
Yep.
On Amazon. Go out and support Ted. Pick up a copy of the book. And that, I think it's a great way to just kind of, pick someone's brain and really kind of know what they're talking about. We got some great comments tonight. So we do appreciate that. And so Ted, thank you again for coming hanging out with us, man. It was very enlightening. I love how you engaged Michelle and I, had us thinking, right? And so
Yeah.
that was pretty awesome. So
Thank you. My pleasure.
so everyone, just have a wonderful evening, and we will be sure to see you next week right here at 8 o'clock on Tuesday evening. Real Money Coach. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good
Have a
night.
good night.
Thank you, Hudson.